Next, I would like to invite Darius Liu, who is iSTOX co-founder and chief operating officer. Throughout his career, Darius has helped to guide a variety of public and private sector organizations to achieve operational goals through the careful and judicious use of strategy. Prior to starting iSTOX, Darius held a variety of roles with GIC, most recently as Vice President of Total Portfolio Strategy of the Economic and Investment Strategy Department. Darius will be elaborating on the 4 pillars of iSTOX proprietary intellectual properties and share snippets of our past couple of issuances and possible issuances on our platform in 2020. Darius, over to you now.
Thank you, Darren, for the introduction, and thank you, Oi, for the tour of the capital markets as they stand today. As Darren mentioned during the introduction, I used to be from GIC, and in GIC, I was in the portfolio construction team. So the one-sentence goal of the portfolio construction team was this: how do you build a better portfolio? How do you build a better portfolio? And the answer to this is always more uncorrelated streams of returns, right? To raise basically the efficient frontier, more returns for a given amount of risk. So I'm sure you will agree with me that for any given portfolio, having access and adding alternative investments, be they in the form of private equity, be they in the form of real estate or other sorts of more alternative instruments, would constitute a means by which an investor like you and I can build a better portfolio for each of us. So on having that as a context, the question then becomes, how do we gain access to some of these alternative investments, be they hedge funds, private equity, real estate, and so on and so forth, right? So the question is, how do we do that? For the vast majority of us outside the ultra high net worth circles, it is not that straightforward, right? Because a lot of these assets are only shown to, through the private bank channels and the ultra high net worth. And it's a symptom of a greater sort of structural thing that we see in the markets today, especially in the private capital market. So in the slide that I'm showing to you now, we see the disconnect between holders and users of capital, right? So on the left, where the number 1 is, we have the users of capital, right? So the people who desire capital for investment, for fundraising and so on. So these are hedge funds, companies, private equity funds, real estate assets, and so on. And on the right, you have the investors that are always on the lookout and hungry for good investment opportunities to build a better portfolio. And the connection between these two is where the disconnect lies, because in the private capital markets today, one encounters a patchwork of different intermediaries and different kind of structures that constitute frictions, right? Systemic frictions that impede the flow of capital from one end to the other. On top of that, investors are encountering long lockup periods, limited secondary trading in the private capital markets, and so on. So all this contributes to high fees and lower transparency, which in turn impedes the accessibility for investors to some of these attractive investment opportunities. So we at iSTOX, when we first started it, we are well aware, being finance professionals ourselves, of some of these problems and pain points that a lot of market participants encounter. We are also aware that in the longer term, we see there are trends in the capital market that we can't deny, right? So if you think about the 15-year-old cousin, right, that you see in during the holidays once a year, or your son or whatever, in 15 years' time, these are going to be the accredited investors and high net worth investors of tomorrow, right? And their thinking and their mindset and their desires as they relate to how they interact with the capital markets differ a lot from the participants' behaviors today. So we see 5 desires, right, and that the accredited and high net worth investor of tomorrow will bring to the market. I will run through this very quickly. Number 1, customization, right? No longer would they accept cookie cutter investment products that are shown to them by banks. What they want is, I have an investment desire. I need to build my portfolio in a certain way. You as the platform, please make it happen for me, right? That's the idea of the user-driven customization. this idea of engagement is important, right? We hear millennials always talking about engagement. Community engagement, staying involved, it had to be a mechanism by which I can use my portfolio to express myself, right? So that's the engagement piece. Automation goes without saying. Automation brings down costs, increases productivity, lessens the operational risk, and so on. Accessibility. No longer am I locked out of a certain investment asset class like hedge funds or whatever just because I am not of a certain net worth, right? Accessibility for all, a level playing field. And last but not least, transparency. No more information asymmetry, no more a locked room whereby I will tell you something and that information is not made known to the other investors. Holistic real-time data for informed investment decisions open for all. I think these are trends that we all can't deny. In 10 or 15 years' time, they're going to come to the fore. Okay, so with that in mind, I would like to introduce to you some of the way that which we went about designing the iSTOX platform. Now, the iSTOX platform represents a capital markets platform that is designed to bring greater accessibility and transparency to a wider range of both issuers and investors. So the reason why we are all here today, obviously, is to find out how to gain access to better investment opportunities for a better portfolio, right? So we believe that iSTOX represents that value proposition for you. Now, iSTOX is built on 4 pillars of proprietary intellectual property, right? It is important at this stage to appreciate that building a market infrastructure platform that has and improving upon a status quo that has not really seen fundamental change since the advent of electronic trading. This is not something that is easy to do, and neither has it been has it seen much success from entities that have come before us. But we believe that these 4 pillars are the necessary ingredients that need to be set in place to establish the foundation of a successful, trustworthy, solid, and value-adding next generation platform that will be a category leader in the years to come. And I'm pretty sure at this point you may be aware of other entities in the private market capital space that on the surface may look to be doing similar things to iSTOX. But I think the key differentiating factor that I would like to suggest to you is that what determines who becomes the leader and who falls by the wayside, I believe, is the ability to get all these 4 multiple stars to align. It is not an engineering problem. It is not a product problem. It is not a process problem. Neither is it a risk and compliance problem. It is the integration of all of these that makes this possible. So in terms of engineering, what we have done is that we have encompassed the end-to-end investment process. What do I mean by that? When one enters an investment, first you have an issuance of a security and you have subscribers to it. Then after that happens, you would need some place to hold it, right? That's the custody piece. Then you need some way to service that, right? So that's the issuer servicing. And then after that, the trading and ultimately the exit of that position. So this end-to-end, right? We have built a proprietary compliance layer and a protocol that encompasses all of these in an integrated, seamless manner on one platform. So we are talking about integrated custody. We're talking about issuance and straight to trading without having to go through external intermediaries, all native to the cloud. What this represents is cost savings, time, and things like instantaneous settlement, for example. So this will then translate to lower cost, higher efficiency, and greater transparency for all users. So that's the engineering piece. Secondly, in terms of the product design, our modular infrastructure, in terms of our smart contracts, are able to encompass different sorts of underlying assets as part of our digitized securities. So as we roll out more and more digitized securities, we are able to remain nimble to the market's desires. And this, of course, speaks to this user-driven model that I spoke about, right? Because if the market has a demand for debt, we are able to accommodate that. If we have a demand for funds of various sizes or for various guises, right? Single call, multiple capital call, and so on, we are able to build digitized security that speaks to that. So that product that allows access to multiple asset classes was that foundation, and then we are building on that foundation to address more and more different use cases as we progress. Third is the process. Now, it's one thing to have the tech, it's one thing to have the product, but if you can't operate a platform, none of this is of any use, right? So that operations and that ability to run an operation within a regulated environment with proprietary listing rules, trading rules, legal templates, and so on and so forth. I think that is a core part of our intellectual property that we've built from the ground up to cater to this new market that we're building. So what does that bring us, right? We have had these 4 pillars, we've delivered on our promise. All that has come together in our first 2 issuances on our platform. The first is a digitized bond. The second, just last month, is a digitized fund, right? So the first digitized bond and the first digitized fund of its kind in the world. And our cloud native kind of technology allows us to reach users, be them issuers or investors anywhere in the world. So if you look on the left, we are just out of the sandbox for a couple of months, but we already have a global spread of users, right? Just slightly under half are actually non-Singaporean. So we are very pleased about that. It just goes to show and validates our thesis that a platform like this actually has a global reach. This slide shows the map of our strategic shareholders. As you can see, they come from all over Asia, and we're very happy that they have validated our thesis and our momentum that we've built and have come along alongside us for the journey. So where does this leave us, right? The crisis has slowed down many parts of the economy. I was telling some of my colleagues here, it seems that the work in iSTOX has never been busier, right? So we are working tirelessly to bring more investment products along more of these use cases in the year of 2020 and beyond. So we are in active conversations with hedge funds, credit funds, property funds, high yield bond funds, movie projects and all that, right? So I can't tell you too much about upcoming issuances, but the details of these issuances as and when they come on board will be made known to everybody with an iSTOX account. So for those of you who have not registered yet for the iSTOX account, I will encourage you to visit our website and click on register and complete that process. So this is my last slide. I thank you for your attention. I hand this time over to Darren for the Q&A.